How y'all doing? Well, in this week's Paleo news, we're going to go over a couple of papers. One of them has been a huge deal in the last couple of weeks, because it really kind of changes the way we think about dinosaurs. But we'll start with a small one first. The first one here is from Science Reports, published at March 30th, 2017 by Thomas D. Carr et al. It is titled A New Tyrannosaur with Evidence for Anagenesis and Crocodile-like Facial Sensory System. Okay, let me go over the abstract here. A new species of Tyrannosaurus from the upper Two Medicine Formation of Montana supports the presence of a Laramidian anagenic ancestor-descendant lineage of the late Cretaceous Tyrannosaurids in concert with other anagenetic lineages of dinosaurs from the same time and place. This suggests that anagenesis could have been widespread mechanism generating species diversity amongst dinosaurs and perhaps beyond. We studied the excellent fossil record of Tyrannosaurid to test the hypothesis. Phylogenetic analysis places this new taxon as a sister species of Daspletosaurus torosus. However, given their close phylogenetic relationships, geographic proximity, and temporal succession, where Daspletosaurus torosus, 76.7 to 75.2 million years ago, preceded the younger new species, 75.1 to 74.4 million years ago, we argued that the two forms most likely represent a single anagenetic lineage. Daspletosaurus was the important apex predator, the late companion of dinosaur faunas and Laramidia. Its absence from later units indicate that it was extinct before Tyrannosaurus rex dispersed into Laramidia from Asia. In addition to the evolutionary implications, the textures of the facial bones of the new taxon and other derived tyrannosaurids indicate the scaly integuments of the highly tactile sensitivity. Most significantly, the lower jaw shows evidence for the neurovasculature that is also seen in birds. Okay. I don't know if I can give too much detail on this because I quickly read it last night and I kind of missed the first few minutes when they talked about it in the meeting because I was a bit running late. Well, okay, so basically they found a new species of Daspletosaurus, they're arguing, and they were naming it Daspletosaurus horneri, named after the famous Jack Horner. And let's see, I don't know much about anagenetics. I guess that's some new thing that they're talking, relatively new thing they're talking about. This paper goes over details of what is found in bones, a good complete piece of the bone. They also found, I think, part of the leg. Let's see if I can find. Let's see. Holotype, which is the specimen in question. Holotypes are the first of its kind described as that new species. It's in Museum of the Rockies in Bozeman, Montana. MOR 590 is its number, a complete skull, partial pectoral limb, and a nearly complete hind limb. And you got paratypes, which are the other specimens of Daspletosaurus are referring to. They go over that. Now, I don't know, some of the talk during the club meeting, some of the graduate students, they seem to kind of get a little bit doubtful of this. If I understand it, I could be wrong in the way I'm wording it, but they don't seem to trust the whole anagenetic thing based on Horner's work, because apparently this is a reference to a paper that has been highly acclaimed by Horner and Horner students in particular. Not to mention, at one point did show that regardless of the cladistical analysis, we see the branches and everything, it doesn't show cladistics doesn't show who the earliest ancestor is. It just shows they always show it in sister groups in relation to each other. And of course, they talk about let's see, maybe the discussion anagenesis. I'm looking to see if this will may explain anagenesis. A hypothesis of anagenesis among Tyrannosaurids from Daspletosaurus turosus, Daspletosaurus horneri to T-Rex is defensible if 1. The taxa or sister species or phylogenetically successive series of species. 2. The species are stratigraphically sequential. 3. The phylogenetic relationships do not conflict with the stratigraphic sequence, and the taxa are from the same landmass of adjacent landmasses that have connections that do not conflict with their chronological sequence. Our new phylogeny showed that turosus and horneri are sister species, whereas T-Rex is nested in a separate clade. This topology is different from the phylogenetic arrangements in previous workers, where D. turosus is a sister species to the clade because of D. horneri and T-Rex. In our phylogeny, T-Rex is separate from the Daspletosaurus clade by 2 phylogenetically and almost certainly stratigraphically successive sister species. Zucheng Tyrannus and Magnus, and Tarbosaurus batar. I think mentioned during the club meeting that there were other species they seem to have left out, other Tyrannosaurids. And speaking of which, I did that book review of the Tyrannosaurus Chronicles by David Hume. Well, even if you got that book and, caught up on that, there's still stuff for T-Rex that they're coming about. It's used as a sort of a standard, almost a gold standard, to compare other related species of T-Rexes or just certain theropods in general. I don't know much about anagenesis, but one of the things they're talking about is the facial texture of its snout. And it seems to have sort of a heat sensor similar to that of crocodiles, which makes sense for crocodiles to have since they live mainly in the water, and that's very good for sensing prey underneath that. Don't know much what a T-Rex would use. They suggest that they would probably snuggle up against each other. I don't know about that. Maybe something that was carried on, but the facial features does show this. Then later got on a discussion of lips, which, there's one of the students had one of his teachers who was avidly against dinosaurs having lips. There are some that do. I don't know. I haven't read up much on that, but I don't know. So maybe some research on it you could look up too. I don't really think they did after discussion and meeting, but there you go. Okay, not much on this one, but here is the doozy. This one right here, by Matthew G. Barron, David B. Norman, and Paul M. Barrett. This was published in Nature, a new hypothesis of dinosaur relationships and the early dinosaur evolution. Abstract: for 130 years, dinosaurs have been divided into 2 distinct clades, ornithichia and Sauristia. Here we present a hypothesis for the phylogenetic relationships of the major dinosaurian groups that challenges the current consensus concerning early dinosaur evolution and highlights problematic aspects of current cladistic definitions. Our study has found a sister group relationship between ornithichia and Theropoda, united in a new clade Ornithichia, with Sauropodomorph and Herrarasuarus as the redefined Sauristia, forming a monophyletic outgroup. This new tree topology requires redefinition and rediagnosis of the Dinosauria and the subsidiary dinosaurian clades. In addition, it forces reevaluation of early dinosaur cladogenesis and character evolution, suggested that hypercarnivory was acquired independently in Herrarasuarus and Theropods, and offers an explanation for many of the anatomical features previously regarded of notable convergence between theropods and ornithischians. Okay. For those of you that are familiar with dinosaurs, that the old system, when it comes to Dinosauria, you have if you did a branch tree, you had Dinosauria, and at those you have 2 groups split. One group is Sauristia, which is lizard hip, which traditionally included Theropods, which are median dinosaurs, and Sauropods, which are your long-necked dinosaurs. And that's mainly because of this similar style hip. Then on the other side, you have Ornithichia, which include your Ceratopsians, your Hadrosaurs, your Stegosaurs, your Ankylosaurs, all the rest of them. And with that, and that made sense for a while, just based on the hip. Well, at first this makes some bit of sense, at least if you haven't studied too deeply. For instance, you have Sauristia, lizard hip. Now, this is not saying they are lizards because of their hips. They have a lizard-style hip. That's what I usually see. They put it in quotations in a lot of writing. Theropods are meat eaters. This is the group that will give rise to birds, which will have the bird hip, which would you figure would match with ornithichia, but it has nothing. That just means that they're not from a common ancestor. What it is, the pubis bone, which is part that sticks out in front of the dinosaur, moves backward. And this has happened. You see it with dromaeosaurs like Velociraptor deinonychus. It actually points downward, and then further species, one more close to birds, the pubis points along the same as the ilium. So they're parallel with the ischium, the ilium on top. And so, if you look up dinosaur hips, you could see that. But apparently, this is not enough. According to this paper that we've been relying on this for over 130 years, but this guy who has been running multiple tests keeps coming to the same pattern. His new cladogram shows it's in one slide. It's in the slideshow where after from one node where he branches, you have Herrarasuarus, which looks like an earlier omnivorous or meat-eating dinosaur, and clumps them together with the sauropods. He calls that Sauristia. Then on the other branch, you have, let's see, all the ornithichias, which are your ceratopsians and ankylosaurs and all of them, as a sister clade to Theropoda in comparison. So apparently hips are not a big thing. Now, during discussion of this, I mean, one of the things I was sure about, and I heard this on the NPR before we had a meeting, a week before we had the meeting, is that this kind of raises some questions, and science, when it comes to new things, science does raise questions, it doesn't just open and end it like that. For instance, air sacs are found in both sauropods and theropods. Now, they figured that would be a shared derived trait between the two. Maybe not so. Maybe it could be a shared derived trait from the earliest ancestors at the beginning of the node that they all had, but ornithichia, the sister group, where it now sister group to Theropoda, the Theropoda has the air sacs, ornithichia don't. They may have lost it, while sauropods off the side still carry it. The sauropods use the air sacs to help make the tails and the necks feel a bit lighter, and again the theropods can use as well. It's also the air sacs and theropods that will give rise with the birds as well. But apparently they may have lost that along the way, so it could have been a shared derived trait early on, but ornithichia lost it. So that's one of the things I have to look forward to. One of the questions you got to ask is what shared derived traits we used to associate with the last group now applies in this one. Theropoda and ornithichia do have more similar style feet and so forth, so there's a lot of things that this can go with. It's going to turn, if this holds true, it's going to turn everything on its head. My old books now are going to be out of date from the old family tree. Such things are going to happen, if this holds up. But in order to hold up, it's got to go through rigorous testing. This could be nothing. It could be something debated for a long time. It could be one of those that's like, we'll have future books and papers that'll show both of them. But it will help. I think if they did try to solve this from a bottom-up perspective, they tried to look at the most primitive species that they could. They looked at the old, all the traits on them, and incorporate new ones from newer species. And this is the results that they got through multiple times of finding this. So I'm not against this new idea. It just shows the advancement of science and why we have it. But let's see. Something else I could think about. Well, I mean, it goes on to show further trees in much more detail than the one to show in the slideshow of various species. And also because something that was brought up in the meeting, we have to look at the Jurassic period to find these earlier dinosaurs. Here's the thing: the most richest source is in Patagonia, which is in Argentina. We do have our Jurassic rocks around the world, but a lot of it's kind of poor in comparison. Sure, we have New Mexico, which is famous for the Jurassic dinosaurs were found there, but I think we need to keep looking for more and more primitive dinosaurs that are related to each other, and this may solve out this tree a little bit more efficiently. But the thing is, other Jurassic rocks outside of a couple places are kind of poor. So again, the bias of the fossil record comes into play here. Because, you may find Jurassic rocks, but you may not find any dinosaurs in that spot. Because they don't preserve well in there. But what we do find in rich sources, like Patagonia, and maybe even New Mexico, and a couple other places, mostly in Patagonia. But even when we find a rich source that can explain some of these questions, it may skew the data a bit. But there you go. Those are the 2 papers for this week. Look them up for yourselves. I'll link them down below. Because as always, if you want to study dinosaurs, don't read news reports about it. Just quickly go to journal sources themselves, and you can discuss them among yourselves. And you could probably you can more likely contact the authors of this. You can find out where these guys are, find their emails, and have a nice discussion, answer questions where. And also, I think I'll find a video from Aronra. He discusses one of the paleontologists. Not one of the paleontologists who did this paper, but well, he was a guy who knows the man who is a professor to these guys. So I should say who you know, and they have discussion about this. So there you go. Thanks you all for watching. You have a nice day.